Hey friends, it's July and that means it's Disability Pride Month, but I've never done a video over here on Disability Pride Month, so I wanted to talk to you about it today. We're going to talk about what Disability Pride Month is, we're going to take you through the flag and go through all the things that disabled people want you to know about disability, especially this month. So first off, Disability Pride Month is not the same as LGBTQ plus Pride Month. I know it can get a bit confusing because they're right next to each other, but they are not linked in any way. Disability Pride Month is its own thing. Of course, there's members that are both. Disability Pride Month is its own thing and it's important. And as I just said, like in the waves of disability cuts around the world at the moment, it's more important than ever. So Disability Pride Month started in 1990 in July when the Americans with Disabilities Act was signed. And it's become a global celebration ever since and an act of protest to campaign for a more inclusive world for disabled people. The first UK Disability Pride Month rally was held in Brighton, and I think it was 2016, but check the descriptions because I'll fact check myself. There are three main goals of Disability Pride Month, and the first one is to change the way that people think about and define disability, because we've been subject to so much societal ableism that we've kind of lost sight of what disability actually means and have come up with strange ableist definitions. To help people unlearn the internalised ableism that is felt within the disabled community. And I know about this firsthand. Like, it took me such a long time to find my worth as a disabled person, and that's not something that should happen in the future. So it's something that we're trying to change with Pride Month. And it's also to promote the belief that disability is just a natural and beautiful part of human diversity that we can take pride in. And I think that's a beautiful message that more young disabled people need to show up in the world with pride and joy and everything else that other people experience. A lot of people kind of not attack Disability Pride Month, but don't understand why we would be proud in our disability. But it's not about pretending that disability is easy, and we're not trying to cover up the fact that disability is really hard. It's more about saying, even though it is hard, we're still here, we're still proud, we're not going anywhere, so we need more support. And we do need allies to fight alongside us so that we can achieve the respect and equity that we all deserve. So I hope that's given you a bit of an idea about what Disability Pride Month is. The next thing we're going to talk about is the Disability Pride flag. Now, this flag is actually the second generation Disability Pride flag, because the first flag was created by Anne McGill in 2019, and it featured much brighter colours and a zigzag pattern to the lines. And that was all about kind of showing that disabled people can adapt to the barriers that we face in a world that isn't built for us. But lots of people online saw that flag, and especially on screens when scrolling, it was really inaccessible to people with epilepsy and migraine, and some other neurodivergent folks found it difficult with such bright colours and that kind of thing as well. So in collaboration with the community, the original designer Anne McGill, who is a disabled writer, redesigned it, because I think it's an important thing to remember that even disabled people make mistakes when it comes to accessibility. You know, Anne has a physical disability but didn't understand what the original design may do to people with other disabilities. So we're not perfect, we're all still learning. But anyway, this is the flag, how it looks today, with slightly more muted colours and just parallel lines. So each colour on the Disability Pride flag represents a different type of disability. So at the top, we've got the green stripe, and that represents people with sensory perception disabilities, such as deafness or blindness. You've got the blue line, which is for people with mental illness. You've got the white line, which is for invisible disabilities, and also people who are undiagnosed with their disabilities, because that is like one of the hardest bits of disability, is not having any idea what's wrong with you, but knowing something's wrong. The yellow is for intellectual and cognitive disabilities, and that can also include neurodivergence. And then the red line is for people with physical disabilities. The charcoal background is to represent the ones who we have sadly lost, either due to their conditions, but also due to ableism or inaccessibility. And the parallel lines just show how connected we are as a community, and that even though we are the world's largest and most diverse minority, we can still show up together. So that is the pride flag, and I will be waving my little broken flag this Pride Month, but hopefully you can make sure that one goes up in your work or school or just in your house so that more people recognise the Disability Pride flag, because I think it's really important and I think it's such a beautiful collaborative effort. So I really want to do some debunking around common myths around disability to show that the societal ableism that we've been taught throughout our lives is just not true. So the first one is that all people with disabilities are the same. We are that, little picture of the stick man in the wheelchair on the blue signs, and that encompasses every kind of disability. And that's not true in the slightest. Disability is incredibly diverse. We were just talking about the colours on the pride flag. Myself alone, I fit into 4 of these categories of different disabilities, and there are such a wide range of disabilities just represented on that flag, and within each of those subsets there's multiple subsets, so no disability can look the same. There are disabilities that are invisible or visible or physical or cognitive or stable or fluctuating, and you're never going to be able to tell if someone looks disabled or not, or treat their experience as the same, because we're not a monolith and we are made up of so many different groups. Because we're one of the minority groups that, and this isn't a threat, literally anyone can join overnight, it means that we have people from all other intersectionalities of society in the disabled community, and therefore I think we are the most, in general, welcoming and supportive community, because we know what it's like to be different, and it's tough. The second one that I want to talk about, especially at the moment and especially here in the UK, is about disabled people wanting to work. And this one is twofold, and I'll talk about disability benefits in a minute, but there seems to be this idea, which is especially perpetuated in the press at the moment, that disabled people are just lazy and they don't want to work. And it's just not the case at all. I work and I have benefits, and it's still not enough because being disabled is expensive. But I am desperate to be able to work more. My body cannot handle it. I can't do a job that I absolutely love and adored, which was being a children's entertainer, anymore, because my body can't hack it. And there are so many people with jobs that they dreamed of or trained really hard for that then became disabled and can't do those things. So often it's not the case that disabled people don't want to work. We actually desperately want to work, but there are so many barriers, whether it's our own bodies or whether it's systemic reasons or bureaucratic reasons, or just not having physical access or any kind of accessibility needs taken into consideration. And when we ask for these things, being kind of labelled as the difficult disabled person, when all we want is access. But please also let me be clear that if disabled people cannot work, they are no less valuable than the ones that can. So off that point, I want to talk about disability benefits. Now, I don't know much about the systems across the world, but I'm going to talk about PIP, which we get here in the UK. And the government are trying to talk about cutting that. By the time this video goes out, there'll be more of a decision on that, so it's difficult for me to talk about in too much detail. But basically, the UK disability charity Scope have recently released updated figures that show that it costs £1,095 more a month to be disabled, and that's per disabled person living in your household. It costs that because things like electricity need to be higher. We're at home more, so we need more heating. Some of our conditions need more heating or more cooling. We need to charge wheelchairs or other pieces of life-giving equipment, and that's just the start of it. That's before we're talking about any specialist foods we might need, before we're talking about any specialist equipment, which is another big misconception, that when you become disabled you just get given everything you need to be able to live and sustain yourself. I've never been given mobility aid by the government. I've either had to self-fund or work for every mobility aid that I've had or needed. The only support that I got for a long time was disabled students allowance, and it took me many years just to even apply for PIP because the process is so dehumanising and traumatic. And even the review I've had, which is just 2 years after I originally applied, has sent my mental health back down into a spiral. So it's already a horrible system. The fraud rate on PIP, for people that think, oh, well, they've just, were acting to get through the assessment. No, the fraud rate on PIP is like 0.01%. It's so difficult to get. So many people with such long-term disabilities are refused and have it taken away, and have to fight to get it back, and pretty much do, because the appeals rate success is so high. And if the government could just save money on that process by saying, oh yeah, you're disabled, and not have to reassess or go through mandatory reconsiderations or appeals as much as they do, it would save the government a lot more money than taking from the most vulnerable in society. The next myth that I want to debunk is the fact that all disabilities are visible, and it's actually around 70 to 80% of people with disabilities have non-visible disabilities. So you can definitely not tell just by looking at someone if they're disabled or not. Being neurodivergent is a disability. It's really, really difficult, especially as someone who is kind of undiagnosed but has sort of been given a rough diagnosis of being neurodivergent. I didn't realise how much of my disability and my coping strategies were impacted by my potential ADHD. And then the other side of that is mental illness. And again, I've struggled with anxiety and depression for many, many years, and they can be just as disabling, if not more disabling sometimes, than the fact that my legs won't physically work. On days when my legs don't work, I can still get around in my wheelchair. It's harder than it is for non-disabled people, but it's manageable. Whereas on days when my mental illness is the worst, I can't move. So we really need to reconsider our idea of what disability looks like. But that being said, the other myth that I want to debunk is that disability is not automatically sad or tragic. Yes, it's hard. I've just explained just a couple of the reasons that it's hard, but it's also full of so much love and community and humour and growth, and gives you skills that you wouldn't have otherwise. Like, I'm really adaptable and resilient, and I shouldn't have to be, but that's something my disability has taught me. And it's connected me with so many different people that I would never have necessarily met otherwise. And disability pride isn't about pretending that something's easy. It's about realising that our lives are valuable and messy and meaningful, just like anyone else's. So yeah, disabled joy exists, and it can. So this year, I feel like Disability Pride Month matters more than ever. And I think that will still probably be true whatever year you end up watching this. But here in 2025, we are seeing so much ableism in the media and so much scapegoating of disabled people that we are suddenly too expensive. And I read a stat this morning that 3.7 million people claim PIP, but there are 16 million disabled people in the UK. So people are already not getting enough support, and they want to take that support away and make it even harder to get. We're being told we're too expensive when we already have to fund ourselves, and even the maximum amount of PIP, which most people have to spend half of on a vehicle, is like between £700 and £800 a month. I can't remember off the top of my head, and it costs nearly £1,100 more a month. So you can already see that the math isn't mathing. Like, we're already struggling financially, and disabled people are so tired of having to explain the same things about disability again and again. So we need this Disability Pride Month to not be performative, not just slapping a flag on it, although every little helps. We really need, in these political times where the most vulnerable in our society are under attack, for allies to step up and fight with us and shout from the rooftops that this is not okay. There are plenty of other ways for governments to save money without scapegoating disabled people. So here's some ideas of how you might be able to help. Firstly, for my non-disabled viewers, learn from disabled creators and pay them for their work. You being here is a great first step, and thank you so much for listening and taking the time out of your day to watch this video and try and understand a little bit more about disability and disability pride. You know, this is YouTube, this is a platform. Yes, I get pennies, but I am getting paid to make this video. But we have to stop this notion that disabled people should educate us about disability for free. So when you are learning about disability, do make sure those people are having paid opportunities, especially if it's in your workplace or school or something like that. Because it's really important not to further take advantage of disabled people. But make sure that you really learn from a diverse group of disabled creators as well. Don't just watch this video. As I said, disability is not a monolith. There are so many types of disability and there is so much to learn, and there's things that I'm still learning and unlearning. So make sure you get a broad idea. There are some brilliant books that have kind of a spectrum of disabled authors contributing that I'll recommend down in the description as well, which might help you. Question the systems, not the individuals. Please don't go around and being like, oh, well, I saw my neighbour do this one day and not the next. Disabilities fluctuate. It's the systems that are the problem. As I've explained, the systems are already difficult. They don't need to be more difficult. They need reform, yes, but listen to disabled people. Sign those petitions. Write to your MP or other political party in whatever country you're in and explain why the needs of disabled people are important and we shouldn't leave disabled people behind or out of the conversation. There should be nothing about us without us, and that's what a lot of stuff is playing out in politics at the minute, is they're just not taking the views of disabled people on board and they're going to end up in a mess. And that's exactly like when people build buildings and then realise they're not accessible and then have to redo them because they've had to get a disabled person in. Get the disabled person in from the start. It's going to save you time, it's going to save you money. Another thing you can do is think about accessibility in your workplace and events and your content. You know, make sure that you've got captions available, make sure you've got image descriptions available, make sure that you know, there are ramps, the lifts are working. If lifts aren't working for a long time, ask people why. There are so many little things that just aren't a ramp. Disability, again, is so broad. You know, talk to your local cinema about there being more captioned screenings. There are so many little ways that you can just show up for disabled people and make more businesses and places realise that they aren't as accessible as they might think. Because when people say we are fully accessible, that means nothing, because access is different for different people. But when you're booking a table, ask if there's an accessible toilet. You know, it helps everyone out. And finally, call out ableism when you see it, even when it's uncomfortable. If you see someone using ableist language or saying something they shouldn't, or having one of these attitudes that I've talked about in this video, please do challenge it so that we can continue to fight and make a difference in what we can do to change some of the ableist ideas that we have in society. And for my disabled friends, remember that you don't owe anyone your trauma or diagnosis or an explanation, and you don't have to educate people for free unless you want to. It's a weird one for me. As I said, like, it's part of my job to educate people about disability, but I'm not just going to do it on the street. And I'm going to do it when I choose to with my own friends and family, and that should be a choice that you have as well. You deserve to have pride in being disabled, in being part of this community, even if you're struggling, because let's face it, it's always going to be a struggle, but the only thing we can do is show up and be proud and show that we are worth more than people think we are. You don't have to be inspiring or overcome anything to be valid. As I said, whether you can or can't work, whether you can or can't get out the house, you're still valid and your experiences matter. And you're not alone. Whoever you are, wherever you are, this community is for you too. And if I hadn't got this community, I'm not sure where I'd be. So I'm so grateful for that, and I hope you can find that too. Thank you so much for watching this video and learning a little bit more about Disability Pride Month this July. I'm so thankful to be able to share it with you, and I do offer full educational talks and training. If you would like to learn more from me, you can head to the link in my description to my website to book me for something at your workplace or school. I really want to know what Disability Pride Month means to you, so if you could share that in the comments, I would love to talk about it some more. And if there's one thing you wish people understood about disability, please share that in the comments too, so that people who are watching this wanting to learn can read more. And do make sure you follow all the links in my description about writing to your MP or signing petitions to help improve life for disabled people. Thank you so much again for watching, and I'll be back very soon with another video.